Hello, everybody, and welcome to kops Office Hours. Today is Valentine's Day 2020, so February 14th. I am your moderator, facilitator, Justin Santa Barbara. I work at Google. A reminder that this meeting is being recorded and will be put on the internet, and to be mindful of our code of conduct, please. I've just pasted a link to our agenda, or repasted a link to our agenda in the chat. Please do feel free to add your name to the attendees list, and if there is anything you would like to bring up, please add it or insert it at the correct place on the agenda. The agenda doesn't look too long today, so I think we will get through it. But please do so anyway, because it's helpful to follow along. And with that, I guess we will jump straight to the first item, which is Peter, do you want to tell us all about Core DNS?
Yeah, it's been an eventful couple of weeks with Core DNS and kops. We tried to upgrade to 1.6.7, and that was cherry-picked back a couple of release branches. And it turns out that image doesn't exist in the Docker repo that we use. We use a k8s.gcr.io repo rather than the official Core DNS repo. That hasn't been mirrored. I believe it's because it will get updated in the next Kubernetes minor version, but it doesn't exist today. It wasn't caught because we didn't have any end-to-end tests using Core DNS. We have since added one, so I added a link there, and it's now green. Also, there's a open PR to discuss switching the kops default from kubedns to Core DNS, which I think aligns nicely with the recent deprecation announcement for kubedns. So just to give an update, and if anyone has any comments.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for fixing that when we discovered it so quickly. I am just trying to figure out whether it's really, to what extent kubedns is deprecated or just deprecated in kubeadm.
The latest release note in Kubernetes Alpha 2, you can take a look at the issue there, or the PR, says that will not receive any further updates.
What is the proposal for timeline on changing over to Core DNS? If we were to do that.
For whom, I guess would be the question. For us or for, you mean for kops?
Yeah, for kops, for making that the default.
I think it would rather depend on what upstream is doing, right? So if I'm less concerned about kubeadm, I'm much more concerned about like kubedns and whether they will continue to patch kubedns issues. Because if they're not going to patch security things, we should accelerate that change. I don't know if you have a link, Cyprian, to the release note you were just referring to.
Let me find the release note and put it in the chat.
Thank you. I believe, don't quote me on this, that GKE is still using kubedns. So I would be surprised if GKE was cool with kubedns. Like, well, GKE would presumably still like fix security issues, but I can try to find out what's going on there as well.
Yeah, so there's the discussion of switching the default, and then there was a discussion about why we use the K8s Docker mirror rather than the upstream. And I think we tracked it back to a commit years ago, but there wasn't much context around it. So there's the question of whether we could switch back to the upstream or not.
There are indeed a number of difficult questions here. I feel like, which gets into the next one, which John was talking about like how do we catch, I guess, one subset of this, which is like missing images. But like, do we want to have the images we depend on mirrored in some location that we can have more traceability on, right? Because I mean, for example, I think it is possible we refer to them by tag and not by SHA, and so it is possible for someone to retag an image. And there's this working group, Kate's Infra, that is building protections against that sort of thing for Kubernetes, for kates.gcr.io, for something that will eventually become kates.gcr.io. So that's one aspect. I think that is a good question. I think, and I can raise that with people in a working group, Kate's Infra, I guess. It's almost like a security question, or an integrity question of like the distro, the Kubernetes distro. I think, yeah, we probably should switch we should find out what's going on with the deprecation of kubeDNS. I think that's the first step. And do you say, is there something in the chat? There we go. Okay, so it is a kubeADM. Sorry. I'm just trying to read the things which were pasted in. I don't know if anyone wants to. Yes, so it's kubeADM says kubeDNS is deprecated, but it's not clear whether kubeDNS is itself deprecated. I can take an action item to find out what's going on with kubeDNS from like the GK8 point of view. Like, why have we not switched to it, and is there some reason we haven't switched to it? I don't know if there's any other way to try to figure this out.
I think regardless of whether it's being deprecated, we could still discuss whether kops wants to deprecate it.
That is also true. Well, or at least, or I mean, yeah, and change the default and
switch the default. Yes.
This is, so if it is deprecated in general, we should switch it for everybody. But if it's not, we just change for new clusters, or
that would be, yeah. I mean, depending on it, I think it depends on whether it's deprecated or just encouraged, and why that we change, like that we choose what to do, right? Like if it's deprecated, yes, we would make it that we probably like say that the default, if you don't actively choose a provider, will change for all clusters and as of a certain kops version, or as of a certain Kubernetes version, I should say. If it's soft deprecated, like think about it, we probably change the default for like new clusters, as you say, and then like think about in a future release changing it if it's unspecified. I think we need to find out what's going on and what's going on with the upstream.
Okay, and the version, not sure when it will show up or something, but I think we wanted the latest because it broke metrics. So the current core DNS version broke some, well, the metrics provider, right, Peter?
Yeah, so there was one metric in particular that had been, there was a regression and we lost out when we moved to 166. So it was literally restoring that metric was the reason for wanting to update.
I wonder if we can just get 167 pushed to kates.gcr.io. That might be or wherever we're pulling from. Like that might be the easy answer that like.
If you can do that, I think that would address all concerns here.
It would at least fix fixes for now. We certainly want to still think about all these topics, but
meant the repo part.
Yes, exactly. And then so push 167, and then Kate's GCR versus not, and then find out like what's going on with deprecation. Okay. I'm certainly happy to like follow up on those three things. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else is. Yeah, I think I'm probably the person in the best place to do those three. All right, shall we do the next topic? John, I believe, is going to tell us about how we suck at testing.
Well, it begs the question because this went in straight through and wasn't caught, and this is not the only add-on that isn't covered in tests. We've got a lot of add-ons, and it would probably behoove us to have some way to test whether a change actually results in a working cluster or not.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I don't have a solution. I think our only tool we have now is the full-on E2E test, which is flaky and expensive.
Yes, I think I think it's become less flaky with some of the changes that you and others proposed. I think about a month ago, where we like don't stick on head. I think what we were sort of, in other words, we run like more stable test versions, like the release test version. I think that's a good change. That should help with stability. I think it's only expensive if we run them on every PR. So I think there could be I can certainly imagine a policy where we we try to like wait for everything or for sufficient coverage. So we run them every day, for example, but then we like wait 24 hours before a code, like we freeze for 24 hours before we do release. So we like make sure that everything passes and just check like when something goes wrong and like what those flakes are, whether they're flakes, whether they're real. And I think we've also talked in the past about people like adopting or picking a scenario that is important to them. And so like if core DNS and Cilium is important to you, then I think it'd be great to create a end-to-end test that runs every day that does that. And then we would see those sort of things. I agree with you that there is an near infinite permutation matrix, but I think there are a couple of sweet spots that probably most people run that we should make sure are covered.
Well, we should at least cover at least all the rows and columns, and not necessarily the full matrix. So, but unfortunately, there are a lot of different settings that each add-on has. I mean, trying to test all of the Cilium options, for example.
Yes, I think it's okay to cherry pick the ones we test, at least in our current testing strategy. So we don't have what I would call fuzz testing, where we basically like explore the solution space sort of randomly. We only have like, here is a configuration and please run it every n hours or every n minutes. So given that, I think we should pick configurations that offer us some coverage, as you say, of the rows and columns, and not exhaustive, but at least some indication.
I kind of would.
Oops, sorry.
Well, what I would really like is a cut down EDE source smoke test is a cluster running sort of thing. But
just with like the default values.
You can have it easily. You can choose what tests to run. So basically you say, I want to, like we do in up, down, green, there is a test like that. If you look at it, you can see just the minimum.
Can I ask, is the motivation for that what is the motivation for that? Is it to save on costs, to get faster feedback, or to reduce on flakes, I guess?
Well, flakes are costs, so it's all save on cost.
Yeah, but computer costs, I guess I'd say, like cloud costs.
Yeah, well, and it's enough to be able to run it on PRs.
Like all of them on PRs.
Or
yes.
So
more.
Yeah.
Or on some PRs.
Yeah, maybe if it touches add-ons, then you run all the or it's a number of permutations of add-ons.
I wonder if it is possible to have a test which can be triggered by a command. You know what I mean?
I have optional jobs set up for kops that you can trigger with an explicit test, and it doesn't run automatically. I think you just set optional true, run always false.
And then there's a command like test kops with Cilium or something?
You could do that. I don't know if it blocks the PR if it fails, though, but it's still a good indication.
Maybe we can do something more intelligent. Do we have access to what files were changed? if we have access to what files were changed, we can start the cluster in a bit more intelligent way. Like if you see add-ons Cilium, then start with networking Cilium. But depends a lot on, if we have the file names.
We certainly do have the file names because you do see you get a full Git history, and I think it actually applies the patch in the builder, I think. But anyway, you certainly have the history, and I think you can see which commit you're running, and I think you get the
Okay,
commit
so
thread.
we can do something like that if we want.
Perhaps. It may be more complicated than it is. It may be easier to start with the I want to run Cilium tests, or I want to run CoreDNS tests because it touched it.
Yes, but it's certainly easier the way it is now. You just merge it and see how it works on the every n hour Z2E test, because we managed to catch a few things like that, including some broken add-ons.
Did I just not leave enough time between the merge and the release on this particular one? Was there actually a red line?
I think we could also benefit from having a delay between merging to master and cherry picking back. So we could say, don't merge cherry picks until a green signal.
And I think it's fine to approve fine to propose the cherry pick, but we should, because it's always very easy to forget. So I'm very much in favor of.
Yeah. Approve it only after you see that the D2E tests are healthy.
Well, or yeah, that we have some, or yeah, the master ED tests are healthy. Yes, see, yes. In this particular example as well, we also could do I think we can discover all the images we use by default, assuming you don't override the images, is what I mean. And so we could have a test that checks that those images exist. That feels like a very specific thing, but I know it happens. So I'd be very much in favor of the if we keep pushing on more E2E coverage, more E2E scenarios, at least until we get pushback from the testing team about the cost, or from us, as it were, about the overhead of understanding the flakes. And it sounds like there's a process change here to make sure that during a release, I am much more diligent. Well, I am, hopefully soon we are much more diligent about checking the status as reported by the ED tests.
And then there's my other thing about catching attempts to upgrade immutable fields, because that requires upgrade tests, which we have none of, which are incredibly expensive.
Yes, this one. So the scenario. So we actually have some mock tests that do this sort of thing, and I wonder if we could catch this stuff in mocks. The problem is, I guess the scenario is I have version 1 of my manifests, and the PR changes an immutable field, but doesn't introduce a new file. It's sort of the real problematic one, right? So I need to go back into the Git history to see what it was before.
There was one we actually shipped, which was when we moved from a daemon set from extensions to apps. The field selector was supplied, and the field selector was incompatible with the previous implied field selector in extensions. So someone going across the 112 boundary would get a failure.
Which manifest was that?
That was, let me pull up the bug.
That's even like that. We're not gonna.
Yeah, we wouldn't have seen that. We had to know about.
Yeah,
you really would have had to have tested that.
I think if there was a way that kops could kind of output its manifests in a way that we could just apply them to even a kind cluster or something very lightweight, because all that matters is whether the API server accepts the change to the manifest for this particular scenario.
That's true. We could also just do upgrade tests. They're not that expensive. We probably want to. Yeah, it'd be nice to have a way to do an upgrade test that was sort of a little bit more tractable than the current approach, I guess.
And I think one start to that would be if kops had a way of having its own tests ran in E2E, because right now we only run the Kubernetes repos E2E tests. If there was a way for kops to define its own, tests and assertions that are ran as a part of the E2E tests, that's where we could do something like testing rolling updates, testing upgrades, those sorts of things.
Yes. And we could also run the Kubernetes E test. So we could sort of invert the, we've actually started doing this, right? For example, we have some tests that test like Bazel is correctly formatted, right, or generated. We could imagine having an ADE test that brings up a cluster, upgrades the cluster, does all that sort of fun stuff, and just doesn't even use any of the existing framework.
Okay, that was Weave. It was 8437. And the cluster worked, it's just that the add-on upgrade didn't apply. And Weave was stuck at the old manifest version.
That's how we missed it, yeah, because I was like, how did I not spot that? Okay.
Yeah, because if you try to change the immutable field, it just doesn't upgrade.
Yeah, so that's even harder to see because a naive upgrade, the upgrade test I would have written would not have spotted that.
Yeah, and it's not when you upgrade kops, it's when you upgrade Kubernetes. It was across the 112 boundary.
Yes, I mean technically we probably should do there's another matrix, another grid here, which is like kops and Kubernetes versions, and okay.
Yeah, as I said, I don't have answers.
I think it would be good to look at can we get some form of easier upgrade test going? I have some ideas. I acknowledge fully that it will not address all the issues, but perhaps if we start getting something in a more easier to understand framework, we can then say oh, let's check that Weave is actually upgraded or whatever it is. Let's figure out how to then layer on the additional things when we discover failures like images not pulling or all these things.
I think also one of the things that would help with testing would be to be able to provide a full spec to load instead of just using the command line options.
And of course, kops lets you do that. It's harder to
get it there.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I was talking with Peter some days ago that, it would have been nice to have a spec. Was just saying that if you find some way to do that with what you think, that would be nice also.
Okay.
And if we were to run tests out of the kops repo rather than the Kubernetes repo, we could define specs in the kops repo to test. So that could be easier.
Yeah,
and we could do a rolling upgrade from 1.10 to 1.18.
That goes to John's point about that being expensive. That will take a long time. And I suspect there might be one or two flakes, but yes, that would do. We should at least try. I would hope, you're absolutely right, because there is certainly the potential to have hysteresis such that just because 110 can go to 111 and 111 can go to 112 doesn't mean that 110 can go to 111 and then 112. Okay. I think that's another, that can be the big exciting 2020 push to test more of the grid and more complete testing, I guess.
I think our biggest issue was that the distros were not tested properly. well, there were no tests, and right now we have them pretty much all running with the default options. So at least people can start their experience with kops without too much trouble. After that, they can ask and learn, but I think that was the main blocker.
Yeah, and thank you for all those tests.
That's no problem.
I don't know if there's anything more anyone would like to add on this topic. All right. Speaking of flakes, Hackman.
Yeah, I think the flakiness can be addressed a bit with the automatically retesting of approved PRs. It's already done for Kubernetes and test infra. I just asked in SIG testing channel, and they said that we just need to add the kops repo and they will retry failed jobs.
It sounds reasonable. It makes me a little sad. Like I try to look at the failures, and it feels like this is going to like just sweep them under the rug. But
yes, unfortunately, I don't have the knowledge, at least for now, to go and fix the AWS in volume, whatever volume tests in 3 volumes. You know, those are the most annoying tests ever. And I don't know if anyone is actually looking into fixing them.
Okay. Do we know what's going wrong or not?
I think it's timing out, waiting to either attach or detach EBS volumes.
Yes, which seems, as far as I know, to just be like a fact of life on AWS, which is that volume attach and detach times sometimes are super well. Even volume detach, there's something which could happen at the kernel level, I guess. Like if you're using the volume, you can understand. But even volume attach can vary from almost instant to like very slow. And as far as I don't think we've ever got to the bottom of why that is.
I think there was also a PR for Run C that was handling some issues with tests that start slowly. But unfortunately, that version of Run C is not yet in kops. One of the PR that I'm talking about next has it, but I doubt it will fix too much the AWS issue.
Okay. Well, all right. I mean, I think, yes, in terms of this topic, I think I would be in favor. I don't know if other people would be in favor of like automatically retesting the PRs, because I do think that we probably do mostly just retest without particularly deep investigation.
Anyway, it's after it passed it already once. So because we don't approve before the E2E passes.
I will stop doing that. I tend to approve like before the EDE passes on the grounds that it would merge if the EDE failed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a problem with approving before E2E passes.
I said usually, so it's not like a rule. Usually by the time someone gets to review the tests, not just, so these tests run only when both LGTM and approve are there. By the time a PR gets both of them, usually got the chance to run the E2E test at least once. So depends on the reviewer.
Okay. Well, anyway, I think it's reasonable to have the bot turn on the bot and see if it saves us time. It sounds like it will definitely save us a lot of time. So I think that'll be good.
Okay.
And we have
other.
Sorry, yeah, and we have other. We're going to beef up our defense on like looking more at the periodic tests before we do a release. So it may slightly destabilize master, but we're going to improve the stability of releases. So I feel like that's a reasonable trade-off.
Plus, we get a bonus. every time a test fails, it sends an email to test infra guys. Not sure exactly who or what spam folder, but they get an email.
Okay.
So they know about our flakes also now.
Okay. All right, that sounds like a good one. I'll have to see where that goes. And you also have the next issue, which is around Docker and TGZ profiles.
Yeah. So the same way I implemented the TGZ for containerd, I changed a bit the way it is done for Docker. Moved the packages that were installed to, let's say, the packages go, so that it can install easily a TGZ. It has some advantages. Would be able to run on more distros, like it will be able to run also on Amazon Linux. Plus, instead of adding 6 packages with every Docker release, you get to add just one. Should be simpler. It works. It's still not ready to go because the guys at containerd managed to add a few bugs in the release, and the one bundled with Docker doesn't start on pretty much anything but Ubuntu latest something and a few others, but should be ready in a few days.
So there's going to be a new version of Docker, I guess, that includes the newer version of containerd?
At least a new version of containerd, because their latest releases were pretty much minimum changes, just containerd bumps.
Okay.
But we'll see. So, but the code and everything is there, just needs a new URL for for the downloads.
Perfect. Thank you. That's really awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Peter, tell us about build artifacts.
Yeah, we've made some progress using the Google Cloud Build jobs available to us. We now have a post-submit image pushing job that's ran on every merge. And we have the kops controller image getting successfully pushed to GCR. There's issues with its tagging, but at least it's up there, I guess. Permissions are in place. We also have the kops node up and all of the image tar.gz files uploaded to GCS. Those are tagged with commits, so those are immutable. We have to figure out how to make these work together so that you can download, one kops binary, and then, with minimal effort, it'll use the same commit version of kops controller and all of the other images and components. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at with that.
Yeah, and as I think I understand it, although we could relatively easily change the tag with which we push images to GCR, we also have to plumb that through into the manifest to match the tag that we were pushing, which is sort of the trickier bit. So and so we do have an override when you set kops base URL, which is that we basically preload the image, and when we do that, my understanding is we don't try to pull it from Docker registry, but I'm just wondering, yes, that's only true if image pull policy is not always or whatever. But anyways, we need to check that. But that is, so like with kops base URL, I think it should work. But the problem with kops base URLs, it's not how we run kops releases. So kops releases today still pull from a Docker registry. And I guess the underlying question here is, do people have a view as to whether we should try to get these images pulling from a Docker registry or beef up the ways to load them from a files, effectively to sideload them.
I mean, I lean towards Docker registry. I'd have to think about it, but
There's definitely one issue, which is like, if it happens that the image gets evicted, image gets removed, then if it's preloaded, you're basically stuck. And so that's why we have tended to only rely on the kops base URL for sort of development builds. You know, it's fine for dev builds, but it's not presumably what you want to run in production. Also, you know, having images running on your nodes where I guess security comes along and it's like, what is this image? It doesn't exist. And you're like, yes, that's true. It does not exist. Would probably not make people happy. So we probably should make the tag, fix the tag, and then we just have to plumb it through. And I think whichever approach we take, I think whether it's we change the default kops base URL or we change the default tag per build, we can use the dash X flag, which injects values into Go binaries when you're building them to like put a value in there. So we'd have to do some build plumbing and then like get it through into the manifest to replace the tag. And then, yeah, make sure we push that same tag. It doesn't feel ridiculous. That might also help with the, it's still like, we still in a weird place where like when you run from master, if you just build kops from master, it's a little bit of a weird scenario in that you're, like if you just download and go build command kops, .command kops, then that's like, you are probably getting an image that isn't the one that's in your source code. You're getting the last released image. And so sometimes we have like incompatibilities and we basically like paper over that by doing a release and updating the versions. The correct thing to do is always to do the full build and the full upload, but a lot of people don't do that, and that is certainly very natural for people getting started. And so I don't think it would help here actually, unless we actively wanted to update all the time. I guess we could maintain a rolling tag, but I'm not sure that would be any better, like dev latest or something.
Wouldn't help too much if you're trying to work off a branch.
Yes, that was, yeah. The scenario is I hope people that, oh yes, true. If you like pull the overall release branch, yes, that also, but yeah, for people that are like contributing code or changing the code, I would hope they would find the instructions on how to like do a full build, but yeah, they certainly are not easy to find. I don't know if there's any other things we should do there. Feels like we should look at trying to get the GCR tag to vary and seeing if we can plumb that through without too much pain. Yeah, I'm just looking, like if we can match there's a V2. I'm just looking at the format of the URL, but yes, the 118.0 alpha 2.75-G, blah, 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 blah. That looks like something that will change every commit. And if there's nothing else there, I had a status update, which is, as people are, as we have heard, I think I and many others spent most of this 2-week period marking, like basically releasing. And so I am trying to streamline that release process a little bit. And I've been looking at, our builds are no longer reproducible, which is disappointing. It seems like it's a Bazel issue, but I'm trying to track it down. And I'm trying to get that going and get to a world where we can have automated releases that can be done by anyone. So in other words, no humans in the human in the mix working group Kits Infra has a proposal where we build these staging releases all the time, and then we have a PR that goes in or that is proposed against a sort of a Git repo, and it lists the SHAs of the artifacts we want to promote, and someone else approves it. And so that can enable anyone to do releases. I think the missing piece right now is we don't really know how to well, there's some mechanics to actually get that working. But the more challenging one is how would someone feel good about approving that PR? Like, how would they say this SHA is a good SHA and did that if they can't build it themselves, or if they have like no way of knowing where these binaries really came from type thing? Like, are we any better off in that world? So that's sort of what I'm trying to figure out, is like making it so that people can somehow say, yes, this is right. Cool. We have reached the end of our agenda. I don't know if there are any other topics anyone would like to bring up.
I think releases.
Planning the
I
releases, you
think
mean?
we are a bit behind with releases, like 1.16 was released quite a while ago, Kubernetes, and we are still in beta. So maybe we want to think if there is anything else that needs to go in there or not, and do a release.
That sounds like a good idea. I'm pasting in the things from last time to see. So we didn't do the AMI promote. Well, I don't think we did AMI promotion. I did not create Buster AMIs. I presume no one else did. We have 3 open branches, which is 117, 116, 117, 118. And I think you're saying we should try to do 116.0. I don't know if anyone else has any issues that they are aware of with the 116 branch, whether people feel confident going to release, because we only did the beta, I think, on earlier this week, I think. The latest.
There is one PR from me, but besides that, I don't think there's much there.
And we can go out. Are we okay to go out without the CoreDNS fix in 167? So in other words, we go out with CoreDNS 166 missing the metric.
Yeah, I guess as long as there's a regression notice.
Right.
There is we can add it to the release notes because there is a simple workaround. People can just point to the official repo.
Yeah.
Do we want the 116 release notes to mention the Kubernetes support deprecation that's coming up in 118?
I thought it already is.
It's not in the release notes, it's in the channel. So if you try to do it, it tells you, but if you read the release notes, there's no mention of it.
Okay.
And I have a PR against master to add it to the release notes, but that's been languishing.
I've mostly been looking at ones that were targeting the older branches because we were in, yes, but.
Yeah, but I have to get things into master first.
Yes. Release notes to include a deprecation note against releases 1.
That's 8443.
Cool. 8443. That, if that's all people are aware of, that feels quite good in terms of being ready-ish to go. I mean, we have to do those things, but like, those don't sound like massive blockers.
I'm already running 1.16 with kops and looks good.
That's great feedback.
Yeah.
All right, so we will, we'll get those in, and barring disasters, aim for 116.0 soon in the next few days, but certainly in this sprint. And then I don't know if there's any, should we therefore do a 117 beta?
Have there been many commits since the last 117 alpha?
No, but I'm more thinking that then we have, it's a little weird to have 2 open alphas.
I think we will add more in the next few weeks.
Would we add more features to 117? I think is the question. I would say probably not. Like, I think we should start stabilizing it.
Yeah,
Especially
I'm
if we
okay with
haven't-
that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I don't think there's any. Mostly, so we don't have two open alphas. And then I don't know if there's any reason to do another 118.0 alpha, but we can probably do one if we want to. That look good for everyone? So looking at doing the Buster AMIs, maybe some AMI promotion. I think we did a Kubernetes, I guess all Kubernetes promotion go through. But we will aim for 116.0, yay. And when we do that, we will do 117.0 beta to avoid having two alphas and start stabilizing 117. And we won't particularly prioritize a 118.0 alpha unless anything comes up, but we can certainly do one.
Okay. Any thoughts about the core DNS deprecation? Core DNS, sorry, Core OS.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, too many core stuff.
I mean, I feel like we should continue to support Core OS as we are today. And I feel like there's this flat car, which is not, it's not, I don't know, it's there, but it's not it's not one of the ones we massively test. I think there's flat car, which seems like a good, as I understand, open source project continuing that, and we should make sure that we have support for flat car. I don't know if we need to tell people anything other than, like, I don't know if it's our duty to tell people we should start testing on flat car if we're not already doing so, and then I don't know if we need to tell people, if you want to put an informative note in the release notes anywhere that, by the way, Core OS is officially whatever the status is, so we'll be like refocusing Core OS efforts on flat car. That would be reasonable in my opinion, but I don't think we need to mirror the deprecation notice, do we?
I don't think so either, but I was thinking maybe we already do some checks on the images to make some changes to the config. So maybe if someone selects a CoreOS image, print a warning, hey, CoreOS is deprecated, look into alternatives. Not sure if you want to do that or just let people use CoreOS, and I guess when they go to find the new versions, they will realize that's not working anymore or something.
Yeah, I'm not overly opposed. I don't want to create a precedent, but if people want to be like, if you want to put in a note to help people, that seems helpful. I would certainly start by making sure that flat car is great, and then we can. Yeah, I would feel bad about putting in the note telling people to use flat car if it then was not ready.
To me, it seems like a clone. They are just digging through it and improving it.
Yeah, so. I more mean like our supportive. Like if we had a bug in flat car but not in Core OS, I'd feel bad about telling people like switch to flat car. But
okay, so let's leave it as is for now, and we'll see how things go. There's no rush there, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right to bring it up, and I think the thing we should make an action item on is to make sure that we have coverage of flat car where we currently have coverage of Core OS. That makes sense. All right. Any other topics?
Justin, sorry to bug you. etcd manager when you have a chance.
The PRs, I will take a look.
Yep, thank you.
Any other items? That's the end of our thing. Yeah, sorry, Rodrigo. Okay. Unless someone just added anything to the notes, I will call time on this meeting and see everyone at our next meeting in 2 weeks, which I'm guessing is going to be February 18th. Have a great 2 weeks. Thank you.
Zero.
Bye bye.